It's not easy, is it? You've spent a lifetime building your values, learning patience, working hard, and trying to be the kind of person others can count on. But even after all these years, one thing still has the power to knock the wind out of you. Family conflict. Especially when it comes from people who should know better. Siblings who act like rivals, adult children who dismiss your advice, or relatives who constantly complain, criticize, or stir up tension. If any of that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But what if I told you that the answers to dealing with this kind of emotional chaos may have been written over 2,000 years ago? Yes, the great Roman philosopher Cicero once wrote extensively on aging and family. He believed that the later years of life could be a time of great peace, dignity, and inner strength, but only if we learn to let go of petty conflicts and recenter ourselves around wisdom, not noise. He said, old age, especially honorable age, has so great authority that this age is more respected by all than youth. Let that sink in. Respect doesn't always come from demanding it, but from embodying it. And when you're dealing with difficult family members, that truth becomes your shield. See, Cicero taught that aging gives us the freedom to choose what we focus on. He believed that we should invest our energy in what uplifts the spirit, not what drains it. And let's be honest, some people, even those we love, can be emotionally exhausting. But here's the catch. We can't always change other people. What we can do is change our approach, our perspective, and our boundaries. That's where the Stoics come in. Philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, who taught that our peace depends not on what others do, but on how we respond. So when your nephew rolls his eyes at your opinion, or your daughter-in-law talks over you at the dinner table, the question isn't, why do they act this way? It's, how do I want to carry myself in this moment? Because here's the truth. You have more power than you think. Not power to control, but power to lead with calm. When you stay rooted, when you choose not to react with the same bitterness or sarcasm thrown at you, you become the anchor. And in a storm of family dysfunction, the anchor matters more than the waves. Let's make this practical. Say you're at a family gathering and someone starts complaining. Again, you feel your blood pressure rise. You've heard this story 100 times. They twist facts, blame others, maybe even hint that you're at fault. In that moment, you have two options. You can bite the hook, join the argument, raise your voice, or you can channel Cicero. You can take a breath, pause, and say something like, I see this topic means a lot to you, but I'd rather focus on enjoying our time together. That one sentence, calm, firm, clear, can change the entire room's energy. And if they keep pushing, that's when boundaries come in. One of the most loving things you can do is protect your own peace. You can excuse yourself, redirect the conversation, or even say, I think we see this differently, and that's okay. Stoicism teaches that serenity is a choice. You don't need their agreement to feel secure. You don't need their validation to know your worth. You are not responsible for their reactions, only your own. And if guilt tries to creep in, because it always does, remember this. Cicero said, the harvest of old age is the memory and abundance of blessings previously secured. You've earned your peace. You've given enough. You don't need to spend your golden years being the referee for grown adults who haven't figured out how to behave. Your job now is to enjoy your life, nurture relationships that lift you up, and set firm boundaries with those who don't. Now let's dive deeper. One of the biggest myths we've been fed, especially as older adults, is that being kind means being endlessly available. That saying yes all the time makes us good, loving family members. But Cicero would argue otherwise. In his essay on old age, he pointed out that true wisdom comes not from pleasing everyone, but from knowing when to stand firm. And that's exactly what boundaries are, not walls, but wisdom in action. See, many people confuse boundaries with rejection, but they're not the same. A boundary isn't saying, I don't love you. It's saying, I love you, but I won't allow you to speak to me with disrespect. It's saying, I want to spend time together, but not if it leaves me emotionally drained for days after. This is something Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, understood well. In his writings, he constantly reminded himself to stay centered in what he could control and let go of the rest. His phrase, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So how do you actually do it? How do you create boundaries without feeling like you're causing a family feud? The first step is clarity. Difficult family members often thrive in confusion. They twist your words, question your memory, or guilt you into changing your mind. That's why your boundaries need to be simple, clear, and repeated if necessary. Let's say your brother constantly calls to complain and dumps negativity every time you answer. You dread those calls. You've tried being polite, you've offered advice, but nothing changes. You feel worse after every conversation. What would Cicero say? He'd probably remind you that friendship, and yes, even family, requires mutual respect. So instead of silently suffering, you might say, I care about you, but I can't be your emotional punching bag. If our calls continue this way, I'll need to step back. Now here's the hard part. You must stick to it. Difficult people often test boundaries. They'll say you're being cold, ungrateful, selfish. Don't fall into that trap. Because Cicero, Seneca, and even Epictetus, the Stoic slave-turned-teacher, warned that letting emotions rule over reason leads to chaos. You are not responsible for their reactions to your boundary. You are only responsible for upholding it with grace and consistency. But here's something else they didn't teach us. Boundaries also need to apply to ourselves. Sometimes we allow guilt to become its own form of self-abuse. We replay every conversation, wonder if we were too harsh, too soft, too something. That mental loop, that's where you need a boundary too. It might sound like, I made the best decision I could with the information I had. That is enough. And yes, it's okay to grieve the relationships you wish were different. Maybe your child never calls. Maybe your sister always finds fault. Maybe your family only visits when they need something. It hurts. But Cicero believed that old age allows us to let go of illusions. No wise man ever wished to be younger, he said, not because youth is bad, but because maturity brings freedom. Freedom to stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Freedom to stop chasing love that only runs away. So instead of trying to win every conversation or prove your worth, step back, detach, not with anger, but with clarity. You are not cold, you are not cruel, you are simply wise, because you've learned that peace is priceless, and some battles are just not worth the scars. And don't forget, not everyone in your family is difficult. Sometimes we focus so much on the problematic ones that we overlook the quiet, steady relationships that are there. The cousin who checks in, the grandchild who smiles just a little wider when you enter the room. Nurture those connections. Water the garden that grows, not the one that wilts every time you tend to it. Let's face it, sometimes the hardest thing about dealing with difficult family members isn't the yelling, it's the silence. It's the passive-aggressive comments, the lack of gratitude, the way they act like your years of sacrifice never happened. And that hurts in a way few people understand. But here's something powerful that ancient philosophers knew, and we can still learn from today. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of strength. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." And that kind of bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's choosing not to reply to a cruel message. It's walking away from an argument that would only drain you. It's showing up to the family dinner with a smile, even if some people don't deserve it, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for your own dignity. And that brings us to the most important shift of all, reclaiming your inner authority. For too long, society has made older people feel like they should fade into the background, that their wisdom is outdated, that their voice doesn't matter. But Cicero fiercely disagreed. In fact, he wrote that the later years of life were exactly when people should speak up, not to control others, but to guide them. And you can still do that. You can still set the tone in your family, not by force, but by example. Let's talk about a real example. One grandmother shared how her adult children constantly criticized each other at family gatherings. The tension was unbearable. For years, she stayed quiet, thinking it wasn't her place to intervene. But one day, she sat everyone down and calmly said, "This home will be a place of respect. If you can't speak kindly to one another, you're welcome to leave. But you won't bring that energy through my door anymore." She didn't yell. She didn't plead. She simply stood in her truth. And you know what? Things changed. Not overnight. But they did. That's the power you hold, not just because of your age, but because of your earned wisdom. Your voice matters, your presence matters, and your boundaries, those matter most of all. But even if others don't change, you still win, because you stop letting their chaos live rent-free in your heart. You stop rehearsing arguments in your mind and start reclaiming your energy for things that nourish your soul. Take time for that. Pour your energy into what brings you joy, whether it's gardening, painting, walking, or just sitting by the window with your favorite music on. Reconnect with people who fill your cup. Join communities where you're valued, not tolerated. And never forget, you are not a burden, you are a blessing. Anyone who makes you feel otherwise is revealing their character, not yours. And maybe that's the deepest truth of all. Difficult family members will always exist, but they don't get to define your peace, your worth, or your future. That's yours to shape. That's your legacy to protect. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So think thoughts that honor who you are, build habits that support who you want to be, and surround yourself with people who see your light, not just your flaws." So the next time someone pushes your buttons, pause, breathe, and remember this: you've already won. Because you're not reacting, you're choosing. Choosing grace over bitterness, choosing wisdom over drama, choosing peace, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to know it's the better path. You don't need to fix your family. You just need to free yourself from the burden of trying to. That freedom, that's the reward of a life well lived. That's the gift of age. And you, my friend, have earned every ounce of it.